So what if our entire civilization, our politics, our economy, even the way we think about art is just fundamentally off-center? Today, we're going to dive into a really big idea from the painter Hirofumi Miyauchi. It's a theory that suggests a shift in how we see everything. A change as massive as when we first learned the Earth revolves around the sun.
And look, this quote isn't just some dramatic opener. It's the perfect way to think about this whole idea. Just like Copernicus totally recentered our physical universe, this theory is talking about doing the exact same thing for our inner universe, for our entire way of being.
All right, so to really get what this revolution is all about, we've got to start with the problem, right? The author describes the world we're living in right now as suffering from a pretty specific condition, something he calls theoretical geocentrism.
This is where it gets really interesting. I want you to imagine abstract ideas like efficiency or justice or economic growth as these giant suns. The theory says we've placed these ideas at the absolute center of everything. And us, our actual living, breathing bodies, we've basically become little planets, just satellites forced to orbit these theories. We end up serving the idea instead of the other way around. And what's the fallout from living like that? Well, here you go. The theory connects all these massive societal problems directly back to that one imbalance. And it all leads to this incredibly powerful diagnosis, collective respiratory failure. That last one, that's the kicker. It suggests all these other huge crises are really just symptoms of a civilization that is, quite literally, suffocating under the weight of its own theories.
Okay, so that's the problem. It's a big one. So what's the fix? What's the revolutionary act that can change it all? Well, just like the original Copernican revolution, it all kicks off with one devastatingly simple question.
Just let that sit there for a second. What if our breath was the 0 point, the true center of our universe? It's such a disruptive idea because it challenges centuries of Western thought all the way back to Descartes' famous line, "I think, therefore I am." This question goes right for the jugular. So where do you even start with an idea of this big? Well, the theory suggests it all begins with art, because art is often where that conflict, that tension between abstract ideas and the living body is felt the most intensely. This slide just lays it all out perfectly. Think of it as a battleground for what art is even for. For a lot of modern art, its value is measured by the old yardstick, language. Can you explain it? Can you write a fancy essay about it? That's what's called logocentrism. But this theory proposes a totally new yardstick, our breath. Forget the explanation for a minute. How does the art make you feel, physically? Does it help you breathe deeper? Or does it make you feel tight and constricted? It's a huge shift from valuing what's in your head to valuing what's happening in your body. And listen, this isn't just some brand new out there idea. It's actually a return to some really ancient wisdom. The author points to traditional arts, like the Japanese tea ceremony, as these amazing containers for what he calls somatic knowledge. That's knowledge that's held inside the body. These traditions, they preserve a form, a kata of breathing, that's been passed down for generations. And it holds way more information and wisdom than words ever could.
Okay, so we've seen how this changes our whole view of art. Now let's zoom way out and explore what an entire civilization, a whole society, might actually look like if it was built around this new center, the breath.
Now don't get scared off by the formula here. It's not a math test, I promise. Think of it more like a new map of reality. Right there in the middle, at the 0 point, you have breathing. That's the origin of everything. On one side, you have intangible theory, and on the other, you have physical matter. Breath is what holds it all in balance. And that little I? Well, that represents the path of things like art, love, and Zen. Things that connect us directly back to that living, breathing core.
So why put so much focus on the breath? Well, the theory argues it's our most honest, most primal, built-in sensor. It operates right on that edge between our conscious and our unconscious mind. You can lie with your words, but you can't really lie with your breath. By just paying attention to it, we get direct, unfiltered feedback on whether a situation, an idea, or even a room is truly good for us, for life itself.
And once you start using your breath as your compass, well, everything starts to change. The implications are just huge. A whole new ethic pops up, where you realize that invading someone else's space literally makes it harder for you to breathe. The economy shifts, valuing not just how productive you are, but also the presence of people who bring calm and help regulate the breath of a community. And we might even start to get our intuition back, that natural intelligence that gets so damaged by all the anxiety and theory.
And this all leads us to the final piece of the puzzle, and it's probably the most profound part of this whole theory. It's about how we can reclaim a word that modern thought has often tried to get rid of and put it right back at the center of being human.
We've all heard this beautiful quote from Picasso, right? But what if it's not just poetry? What if it's a technical description of what art actually does? The theory of absolute breadth argues that this is Western thought finally catching up to what artists have always known deep down, that art's main job isn't conceptual, it's visceral. It's a tool for cleaning the soul.
And this is where it gets really radical. The author reframes the soul not as some religious idea, but as a fundamental part of us that can actually be harmed. And so, the theory suggests we need a new legal concept, a right of the soul, something to protect our innermost selves from the kind of violence that comes from theories and systems that choke our breath and diminish our lives.
So you see, this totally flips our idea of what an artist is. They're not some godlike creator who makes something out of thin air. No, the artist is more like an essential worker, a janitor of the soul. Their job is to humbly come in and sweep away all the dust of daily life and abstract ideas, restoring that original blank space inside us so that we can finally breathe freely again.
And so, here we are, right back at the beginning. We started by challenging, I think, therefore I am. This new, breathing civilization gives us its own powerful declaration. Vivo ergo sum. I live, I breathe, therefore I am. It's the ultimate summary of this huge shift from a world centered on the mind to one centered on life itself.
The theory leaves us with this one last kind of haunting thought, that maybe, just maybe, future historians will look back on our era and diagnose us as the age of collective respiratory failure. So the final question isn't for me or for philosophers, it's for you. Just take a moment, take a breath. Can you feel it?